Happy Friday, Infiniteers! Today we are going to finish my advanced flight training toy box by hooking up the logic for the time challenge and the enemy wave generators out there, and a few other things like these object generators and the smoke on the crashed spaceship. And the logic for this is so simple that I do not have a logic diagram for this episode. You don't really need it. You should be able to follow along with what I'm doing in this video and not have any trouble. So let's go ahead and get started. And I think we'll just kind of proceed around the toy box in order. I think that's the best way. So we'll start here at the beginning. And I've placed a few toys here ahead of time. We have a level starter. And again, this is out of the Creativitoys. We have two object generators. I have two locators that I've placed here, as well as a locator I have placed underneath the spaceship here. And then we have an effects generator, a challenge maker, two logic gates, and a timer. And I have placed the first checkpoint right here. Okay? Alright, so as we begin to hook these up, we'll begin with the level starter. And actually, we'll start with the object generators. So we're going to connect this up with a new locator connection. And this one to the other locator. That's where we want the objects to go when we're done. And the effects generator will connect up to the locator that's under here. Okay, so on the level starter, we'll do a new logic connection on Catalyze. We'll come over to the first object generator, and under the packs category, we're going to select Buzz Lightyear's jetpack. Okay, that's what's going to go at the first locator there on the left. Back to the level starter, new logic connection on Catalyze. Come over to the other object generator, and here we'll go down to packs, or under tools. And from here, we are looking for the Star Command Blaster. And there we go. And that will cause those to appear here when we load the toy box. The other thing we want to do is start the smoke for the spaceship. And so on the level starter, a new logic connection on Catalyze. Come over to the effects generator. We're going to play Looped out of the smoke category. The smoke plume. Okay? And if you want to see those, you can hook up a button to this so that when you push the button, it starts the level starter, and then push the button and watch those two objects appear here and the smoke begin. I'm not going to do that because I've done that on other episodes. Alright, so that's it for the level starter and the setup here. For the checkpoints, you don't need to do anything. You can just use the default properties that are under here. I haven't changed anything here, I don't believe. And notice which way the little red dot on the corner is facing, because if the player comes back to the checkpoint, that's how you know the player is going to be facing that direction, is because the red dot is on the upper left corner there. Okay? Now for the timed challenge, this is very easy. So we'll come under the properties. And under here, we are going to change the results score label to time. We'll leave these all set the way they are. And all of those set. Challenge type, we're going to change to start on foot. Okay? And on the timer, under the properties, for the target time, we're going to set this to the max. Visible display will be on, and we are going to count down from the target time. No, we're going to count up to that. So it's going to measure how long it takes the player to do the challenge. Okay, so that's how we'll set that. And then for the challenge, we just come to the challenge maker. We do a new logic connection on invites accepted. Come over to our timer and reset. On the challenge maker, a new logic connection on invites accepted. Because I can't come over here, that's why we have the logic gate. So we'll input into that. And we're just using the logic gate as a pass-through so that we can do two things on invites accepted. The other thing we want to do here is show the timer display. Those two are the two things we want to do with the timer on invites accepted. On the challenge maker, new logic connection. When the challenge is started, we will start the timer. On the challenge maker, a new logic connection. When the game is ended, we will pause the timer. And we also want to hide the timer. So new logic connection on game ended. Again, I can't come over here and create a second signal there to that. So we're using this logic gate for a pass-through to do that. So we'll input into that. And then on output from that gate, come over here and hide the timer. Okay? And there we are. And well, one other thing. On the challenge maker, we want to do a new time results connection and connect that to the timer so that at the end we can see what our final time was. And that is almost it for the challenge maker. This is a super simple challenge. All this is doing basically is starting the timer and ending the timer when the challenge is over. And there's one more connection we need to make when we destroy the Zurg statue up there. But we'll do that when we get up there. So that is all for the beginning of our challenge. This sets up the level starter, the smoke plume, and the challenge maker. Okay? So now we're going to make our way around the toy box, and I'll show you the other objects that I placed and what we did to hook them up. And it's really mainly enemy wave generators, checkpoints, and trigger areas. So when you get to this point, I have placed another checkpoint. And again, notice which way the red dot is facing. I have put a trigger area here at the drop-off from that ledge. And I have placed two enemy wave generators here. This one is connected to the locators you see down there. This one's connected to the locators you see down there. This one is configured with two mini Zurg bots and two mini blasting Zurg bots. And I believe so is the other one. Yep. And then on all of the enemy wave generators, the properties are set the same. Basically the way you see there with the generation delay set to 0. Okay? And now I'm going to show you the first set of enemy wave generators and what we do and how to hook those up. All the others around up through the asteroids are already set up. But what we're going to do is come back over here to this trigger area. This gives us enough time, or gives the player enough time, to drop down, make their way over the lava, shoot those blip blocks, and make their way up here. And by the time they get here, the enemies should be generated. So I've placed this far enough back where that should happen. So on this trigger area, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to come up to the first of our enemy wave generators and generate the wave. We're going to make that same connection for the other one. When entered by player any. Generate the wave. Okay? So then the enemies will be here when the player gets here, and they can battle them, or if they want, they can choose to go past the enemies and launch off into space. If they do that, I want to take these enemies out. So there's another trigger area down here. When they get far enough away from that, if they reach this trigger area, it's pretty clear by the time they get here, they're not going back. All right? And they have to come through here to get the elevation, to get up to that next island over there. So on this trigger area, a new logic connection when entered by player any. At this point, we will go back and remove those enemies. Because again, it's not likely that the player is going to fly back there. So we will defeat the wave. We'll do the same connection for the other one. And that's what all of the trigger areas that you see up through the asteroids are doing. They are generating enemies and defeating enemies. So generating enemies that are coming up ahead, defeating enemies that they've already passed, if the player flew past them and didn't deal with them. Okay. All right, so as we continue to make our way up and around, the next asteroid of interest is this one over here. And we have some enemies over at the tower there. So when the player comes through this trigger area on this asteroid, and they have to come through this trigger area to get over there, then we want to generate the wave. And I've already made the connection here to do that. So when the player enters this trigger area, I'm coming over to this enemy wave generator and generating the wave. And this one is connected up to the 4 locators you see there and the one that's over here. And notice we have another checkpoint sitting here. And again, there's no logic connections to the checkpoints in this particular toy box. This enemy wave generator is configured with 3 mini Zerg bots and 2 blasting Zerg bots. All right, and again, they'll appear at the connected locators there. Now the player battles them or not. They make their way up here to the top of this thing, and then they fly over this way. And at this point, we have another trigger area here, which this is positioned so this is an island they have to fly through to get where they're going. And so this one defeats the wave down there, and it connects to an enemy wave generator over here to generate the wave. And so when we get to this island over here, they're going to come up around over that way. I have 2 locators sitting there. And this one is connected to those 2 locators. And the wave is configured with 2 mini blasting Zerg bots. If you think those targets are too small, you can change that to just blasting Zerg bots. Okay. All right, so then they fly off of the end of that, and they make their way around that asteroid, and they come up this one. So I have another trigger area here. This is defeating the wave back there, and it is generating the wave at the next island up here. And we have a trigger area set up here, or a checkpoint, sorry, set up there. And this enemy wave generator up here is connected to a locator back over here on top of the little island at the top of that climbing rope. All right. And this wave is configured with a single Zerg bot. Okay. So the player leaves that island there, and they fly over this way through this trigger area at some point. That's going to defeat that wave, and it's going to generate the next one out over that way. So the player from here is going to fly over this way, up that slope, up that slope, over to this island. And on this island, we have several locators set up with an enemy wave generator here connected to those. And this one is configured with 3 Zerg bots. Now if the player decides to leave there, climb up this thing and ignore them, they'll end up flying over this way. And so we have another trigger area stretched over this island. This will defeat the wave back there when the player flies through it. And it doesn't generate any new ones because there's no more enemies out here on the asteroids. Okay? So then the player makes their way up to this asteroid, over to that one, and from there into the first of Zerg's ships. And as you fly into the ship, you'll see I have a trigger area set up in here. This covers the conveyor belt and stretches all the way across that conveyor belt along the back. And when the player enters this trigger area, it's going to connect to these two enemy wave generators to generate the waves. This one is connected up to the locators that you see down there. This one is connected up to the locators you see down there. And this one is set up with 4 blasting Zerg bots. The other one is set up on the wave on this one with 4 Zerg bots. So you got 4 and 4. And again, the locators are out here. And they're out away from the conveyors here a little bit. So the player has room to exit those conveyors. Okay. And again, you can pause the video, but those are connected to those 4 locators down there. These are connected to the ones in the back. So the Zerg bots that are shooting are the 4 in the back. And we have another checkpoint. And here we have a trigger area. When the player enters this one, it's going to defeat the 2 waves back there on those 2 enemy wave generators. And it's going to generate the wave for the enemies here at the Star Command base. And you find that back over here. This is where I've placed that. This is connected to 2 locators down there, 2 locators over here, and a locator positioned here. Okay? And on this one, this is configured with a 2 giant blasting Zerg bots, a giant Zerg bot, a couple of them, and another giant blasting Zerg bot. And I set it up this way because of the way I connected the locators. So I want 1 of each over here, I want 1 of each over here, and the shooting one goes over there. Okay, and then we have another checkpoint here. Now for this bridge, what we want to do is I've placed a replayer over here. So under properties, we're going to take the playback interval to 0. We're going to come out of the editor. I'm going to step on the replayer to get the menu in the lower right. On my Wii U, I press B to start recording, and then I step off so I can get back in the editor. We're going to go into Spark mode. I'm going to come over here and select this and pick it up and put it back. And then come back into Spark mode, come back over here, step on the replayer to get the menu in the lower right. I press B again to stop recording and A to clear. And that takes the bridge out. Again, be sure to press A or press the clear only 1 time. And I want the player to have to press both buttons in order to get the bridge. So for that we have a dual action trigger. All right. So the first button that I've placed over here, we'll open the logic menu for that, do a new logic connection. When that is pressed, we're going to come over to our dual action trigger and do input 1. On this button, when this is pressed, on the dual action trigger, we'll do input 2. And on the dual action trigger, when both buttons have been pressed, this will broadcast the complete signal. So we'll do a new logic connection here on complete, come over to our replayer, and do a playback. That'll put the bridge in there. Okay? Right, once again, nothing to do on the checkpoint. Last time we hooked up our trigger area here. I think we did. Well, anyway, I can't remember if we had this before or not. But there's a trigger area that goes across here, and it's, again, the bottom edge of that is positioned at the height of the platform here. But when this is entered by player any, we come over to this replayer and do a playback. All right? And that will put in the cannons in here in this little alley. And now here's a little change we're going to make from the original playthrough video. I have added some locators back here with an enemy wave generator. This is connected to the locators, and I have configured this wave with 3 giant Zerg bots and 2 giant blasting Zerg bots. Okay? And I have also stretched a trigger area across the back side of those blip blocks. So on this trigger area, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll come over here to our replayer, and I want to clear this because I have to make room for the enemies in the memory. I don't have enough memory on my Wii U, I don't think, for both the enemies and those cannons. On the trigger area, new logic connection when entered by player any. Come up here to this enemy wave generator and generate the wave. And we only want to do this one time, mainly because I don't want to clear that replayer down there multiple times. So on the enemy wave generator, we'll do a new logic connection. When the first unit is generated, I want to come over to my trigger area and deactivate it. Okay? That'll put the enemies in here for a little bit more exciting finale. And then the challenge ends when the player destroys the Zerg statue here. Okay? And so on this, actually I had this connected before, but I'm going to go ahead and take that out. So on the, let's see, I'll delete that link. Sorry. All right. So on the Zerg statue, we're going to do a new logic connection when this is broken or collected. We're going to go back to the beginning of the level, over to our challenge maker, and we'll complete the game. Because destroying the Zerg statue is what ends the mission. Complete the game. And there you go. And that's it for the logic. It's pretty straightforward. It takes a little time to set up all the enemy wave generators and connect all the locators and set up the triggers, but you can see exactly what needs to be done, and it's not too difficult to do. And that's it for my advanced flight training toy box. Again, it's a fairly easy toy box to build, and it's a lot of fun to play. For our next episode of Toy Box Classics, I will have a Star Wars toy box for you from Sumerian, one of the original toy box artists, and this special episode will air on Monday, May the 4th. So be sure to come back for that, or better yet, subscribe to my channel so you won't miss it. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend.